What is the sum of both values of x which satisfy? X minus 10 squared is equal to 2002 squared. Okay, 2002 squared, so if we took the square root of both sides, then that would be x minus 10 is equal to plus or minus 2002. So that means that x minus 10 is equal to 2002, or it means that x minus 10 is equal to minus 2002. So from this gives me x is equal to 2012. This gives me x is equal to minus 1992, and then they want the sum. So the sum of these two is, well, 2012 minus 992, that's 20. Quadrilateral Q has exactly two right angles. Two sides of Q have length 6. The other two sides have length 8. What is the area of Q? Let's draw this. So this is one right angle, and perhaps that is another way of a right angle. And then let's just draw a little line between. So 6, let's just say those are 6 and these are 8. So since they want the area of this whole thing, it really is two right triangles. So it's two right triangles, and each right triangle is 1/2 base times height. The base is 6, the height is 8, so this is just 48. If x is equal to 10 to the power of 10, for what value of y will 10 to the power of y equal the 10th root of 10 to the power of x? So 10 to the power of y is equal to the 10th root, like that. So that's the 10th root. Okay, so let's take everything to the 10th power. So let's just raise everything to the 10th power. And when you do, this becomes 10y, and this just becomes 10 to the power of x, because 1 over 10 times 10 is just 1. So then the bases are the same, so that means that the exponents are the same, so that means 10y is equal to x. Now x, they've told me, is 10 to the power of 10. So substitute that in, and then divide through by 10, and you'll get 10 to the power of 9 for the value of y. Independently of each other, two numbers are selected at random from among the positive real numbers less than 2. With all numbers equally likely to be selected, what is the probability that the sum of the squares of the two selected numbers is less than 4? Well, let's call those numbers x and y. X, they're saying, is less than 2, and it's positive, so it's greater than 0. Y is the same, less than 2, greater than 0. Okay, so let's draw this on a coordinate axes. Here's your x, here's your y, and let's say that's 2, that's 2. So these all sort of fit into that box, all values of x and all values of y. Okay. Then they're telling me that they also want the sum of the squares, so that would be x squared plus y squared, to be less than 4. Now, some of you may recall that the equation of a circle is of this form, x squared plus y squared. And if it equals 4, that basically means it's a circle centered at the origin with a radius of 2. So if I draw that here, what I really am just drawing is sort of what's in the first quadrant. I'm not interested in the full circle. But they want it to be less than 4. So they basically want this region. Okay, so that makes things a little bit easier. So that means basically that the probability is the specific condition, which is that it's less than 4. So that area would be the area of a quarter circle, so pi r squared divided by 4. And then over the total area, which is the whole square. And that whole square is just a 2 by 2 square. Now the radius is 2, so that's going to be pi times 2 squared over 4, over 2 times 2, which is 4. And that looks to me like pi over 4. My gumball collection is missing 5 gumballs. The ones I'm missing are those numbered with any of the 5 even numbers between 9 and 99, which, when divided into the sum of all the positive 2-digit even numbers, leaves a remainder of 0. What are these 5 numbers? So let's say we have the 5 numbers A, B, C, D, and E, and those are somewhere between 9 and 99, but they're even. So they could be any of 10, 12, 14, like that, all the way up to 98. Now, we don't know which ones. Now, they're telling me that, first of all, we have to figure out the sum of all the positive 2-digit numbers. So the sum of all these guys, so 10 plus 12 plus 14 plus ... 98. So that looks to me, if I divide through by 2, it'll be 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus all the way till 49. And then if you use that formula for the sum of consecutive numbers from 1 to n, it'll be 49 times 50 divided by 2. But I have to subtract 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 because that's not part of it. And this whole thing, make sure you don't forget to multiply by 2. And when you do that, you get 2430. So basically what they're saying is that if you took any of these guys, any of these 5 numbers, and divided it into 2430, you would get a remainder of 0. So for example, 2430 divided by A would be some integer with a remainder of 0. So that obviously means that A is a divisor of 2430. And A is a 2-digit even number between 10 and 98. Okay, so we just have to look at the divisors of the divisors of 2430. The divisors of 2430, well, one way is to break it up into its prime factors, and when you do, you get 2 to the power of 1, 3 to the power of 5, and 5 to the power of 1. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 9. These are the divisors of 2430. There's a lot of them. If you do that formula, 1 plus 1 is 2 times 5 plus 1 is 6 times 1 plus 1 is 2. So there's going to be 24. Ooh, a lot divisors. Let's just keep going. 10, 15, 18, 27, 30, 45, 54, 81, 81, 90, 135, and so on. But after 135, or even before 135, you don't have to worry because we're only interested in numbers that are in this range. So that looks like this range right here. Okay, and then of course the other criteria is that it has to be even. So let's circle the even ones. That's even, that's even, that's even, that one, and that one. And therefore those 5 that I circled are the 5 numbers: 10, 18, 30, 54, and 90. If x satisfies the equation arc cos x, arc cos 2x plus arc cos 3x is pi, for what ordered triple of integers a, b, c will x also satisfy? A x cubed plus bx squared plus cx minus 1 is 0. Well, let's see here. Let's change this to -1, which is the equivalent. And it's a little bit. I like writing it that way better. So that makes it as follows. And we're going to probably have to use a trig identity here. I'm going to break this up. I'm going to put 2 on one side and put 2 on the other side. So the pi minus cos -1 3x. Now, then I'm going to take the cos of both sides. So the cos of this whole thing, cos -1x plus the cos of -1 2x. And then the cos of the other side also. So pi minus the cos of -1 3x, like that. And then now is where the trig identities come in. And some of you may remember, some of you don't, so that's okay, I'll write it out. The cos of a plus b is equal to cos of a times cos of b minus the sine of a times the sine of b. And then the cos of a minus b, that is equal to the cos of a cos of b plus the sine of a sine of b. Okay, so that is what we're going to apply here. So off we go. So that's going to be the cos of negative 1x plus, I'm using this one, right? So yeah, I'm using that one, that first one. So cos of b, so cos of the cos of negative 1, 2x, correct? And then minus, minus the sine of cos of negative 1x, and then the sine of b, which is the sine of cos negative 1, 2x. Okay, then we have to do this side. So that's going to be then we're going to use this one, that trig identity. So there'll be the cos of pi times the cos of cos negative 1, 3x, and then plus the sine of pi times the sine of cos negative 1, 3x. Okay, all right. So let's go through this. So this one is just x, and that is just 2x. So that's pretty easy. But these two are going to require a little bit of explanation. So I could write it out, but then you guys won't understand. Some of you may understand it, but some of you may not. So let me explain how to figure out this guy. Let's say you have an angle theta, and it's the cos of that is x, right? So that's adjacent, and let's just make the hypotenuse 1. Correct? So if I were to write the cos of x over 1, the negative cos, it would be theta, right? Cos of theta is x over 1, so the cos of negative x over 1 is theta. Now we're interested in the sine of that. So we're really interested in the sine of theta. Well, to figure out the sine of theta, that would be opposite over hypotenuse. But what's the opposite? Well, this is the opposite. So that's y over 1. But we want y in terms of x, because we don't want to put a y in there. So using Pythagoras, that's how you get the y in terms of x, and it would be 1 minus x squared square root. So that's sine of theta, which is essentially the sine of cos negative, in cos of the arc cos of x, cos negative 1 of x, however you say it, is equal to 1 minus x squared. Yeah, which is y basically. So it would be 1 minus x squared there. And then very similarly, let's do that. Let's do this guy. So again, if you have, say, a theta, and its the cos of that is 2x, so it would be 2x, and let's just make the hypotenuse 1. So that means the cos of theta is 2x over 1. Then that means that the cos of negative 1, 2x over 1 would be theta. Now we are not interested in that so much as we are interested in the sine of that. So we want the sine of that. So the sine of theta, same thing. If that's y, it'll be y over 1, but of course we want y in terms of x. So using Pythagoras, it would be 2x squared plus y squared is equal to 1. So 1 minus 4x squared would be the y, all under the square root sign. So that is what sine theta is. So that would be 1 minus 4x squared. So that's how you get that. This cos pi, I believe, is cos of pi is what? Negative 1? And then this is just 3x. And then the sine of pi is 0. Okay, so that's very nice. That just vanishes. So now I just have to work with this. Okay, that's good. All right, so let's just work with that one now. So that's going to be 2x squared, and then minus, all under the radical, 1 minus x squared, and then 1 minus 4x squared. And then this just reduces to minus 3x, correct? So let's put everything on one side. So this will be 2x squared plus 3x. And that's going to be 1 minus x squared, 1 minus 4x squared, all under the radical. So let's square both sides to get rid of that root. And when we do, we get 1 minus x squared, 1 minus 4x squared. And then this, when we square it, it'll be 4x to the power of 4 plus 12x to the power of 3 plus 9x squared, I believe. Yeah. And then on this side, so we got to square that. Well, we got to do that multiplication. Minus 4x squared minus x squared plus 4x to the power of 4. Okay, and then let's put everything on one side to see what we get. When we put everything on one side, we will get 12x to the power of 3 plus 14x squared minus 1 is 0. Okay, now finally we go back to the original. They're saying that this is 0. So let's compare that. Ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx minus 1. Okay, so ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx minus 1 is 0. So comparing coefficients, it looks to me like a is 12, b is 14, and there is no coefficient for x, so that means c would be 0. So therefore, a, b, c, that triple is 12, 14, 0.